New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert here, hiding behind the placard. Good morning.
Good.
Rev Z right here.
Good morning. This is Reverend Michael right here, coming from Utah.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for the first Friday in November. It's the first Friday already. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to jump into. Feel free to join us throughout the conversation. I believe this is our dear friend Linda. Looks like somehow Facebook and YouTube and StreamYard have disconnected your connection there, Linda, but I think that's you. Good cold mountain morning. Anyone else that's watching, feel free to join the conversation. We've had our dear friend, or new to Elzia, a new friend to Elzia, and a dear friend of mine, Reverend Michael Benjamin, is with us today from not quite as snowy Utah as we're having here in the suburbs of Denver. It's not often I get to say that, and I lived in Utah for a long time, so we're really happy you're here with us. We've had you scheduled to be on the show, and I think we had a different conversation planned for this morning than we're going to have, but boy, do we have a conversation for you this morning. So let's kick it right to Reverend Michael to get it started. Let him introduce himself a little bit. What do we need to know going into this first weekend of a, dare I say, a brave new world?
Well, first of all, I come to you from Northern Utah, the Satya Center for Spiritual Living in the Ogden community. We started it back in 2005, 2006. Blessed to be with you and have the opportunity to share, some frustrations, but also the opportunity that we have to grow. So thank you for having me. In terms of what do we have to look forward to? We're always being tested, aren't we? There's plenty of opportunity for us to, kind of look in the world of effect and then also find that causation and begin to ground into our sanity. Begin to tap into what's real. And as you're going to hear from us today, there's probably some anger, some fear, some resentment. As ministers, we are not 100. There's no 100%, is there? Meaning that there's no once and for all. We know that. There's going to be ebbs and flows and opportunity and loss and grief and all these opportunities for us to remind ourselves. I don't know about you guys, but yesterday, I'm telling you, yesterday I was operating at warp speed. I was noticing in every minute there was probably 45 seconds of shit thinking.
That's a good recognition. I didn't think to count it that way, so but I had my shit thinking over the last couple of days, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and I love that opening perspective, Mike, because it really, from my perspective and viewpoint, it really opens up this telescope, if you will, of life itself, what life really is, right? There's this cause and effect. There's this, we put it in negative terms of cause and effect, but it's really balance and equilibrium in the universe, right? We've taken two sides of a pole, and that's what happened in this elections. Two sides of a pole have express themselves in a way that is an object opinion of ever making a whole thing last. If we continue to operate on the margins, it will get absolutely crazy. But what we have to do, I believe, we have to begin to do the deep work. We got to go inside. What is yours to do? What is your purpose? What do I have a passion for? Any of these cliches names that people got, there's pick one you like and then stick with that one. We have to become, as Ernest Holmes said, religious scientists in every aspect of our life if we want to make the unity that is always present more visible. Right now it's operating at a low frequency.
I dropped a post on Wednesday, and it's the quote by Dr. Ernest Holmes: "To desert the truth in the hour of need is to prove that we never knew the truth."
Mm-hmm.
And he puts a couple other sentences around it to make it a little less in your face and a little less of a slap. And that quote, beyond the slap to wake you up, points to the fact that now is the time to do the work. When things are the darkest, and from in my study, my life, this is a dark time from a liberal perspective. Not going to sugarcoat it. And I don't think it has settled in for so many as to what the effect will be. We are living in the midst of conscious revelation, as I was listening to the intro coming into today's show, right? Living on that evolutionary spiral. Well, the spiral would appear to have taken a very hard right turn. And that's just the truth of it. So now is the supreme time to, as I think you're saying, as I hear you saying, Z, to get to the practice of it. Start to really, and that doesn't mean, and as we're learning, and that's not the practice of 20 years ago. That's not the practice of sitting around in circles singing Kumbaya and having insulated prayer circles that nobody's paying attention to. It is about, I think, getting out into the world and starting to really speak our truth.
Oh yeah. In fact, I've had that hit on, ever since I came into my first Science of Mind Center in Big Bear Lake, Southern California in 1995. I was an unhappy, starving golf pro, and my career choices were just changing. I fell in love with my wife, and she had 3 kids, but the opportunity, right? So doors closing, doors opening. Really, my life was elevated by Ernest Holmes, by these principles, and so on and so forth. As I'm sure you each have your stories, but the point that I'm making is, over the years, like, a shit ton of grief we've experienced. We've had catastrophic illness with our child back when he was 10. He's currently a quad. We've had loss of another child suddenly and unexpectedly. We have lived in and through grief, but always thrive, always rise. One of the biggest things one of the biggest awarenesses that came over through the years is, life is for us.
Mm.
Life is for you, meaning that everything that unfolds in some way is for you. So if that's true, then the inquiry being, what is in this that is for me, right? Now, to speak to it, what you just said, Robert, is churches trans-denominationally have been thinning, and attendance has been going down for the last 20, 30 years. Yep. The elderly still continue, but where's the young people, and so on and so forth, right? So the awareness that came over me the other day was, get ready, right? Because what's going to happen here is people are going to be seeking, right? They're going to be seeking answers. And I think spiritual community, certainly private counseling sessions. I don't know about you guys, but my private practice, I'm expanding my calendar and preparing to devote time in private session, both men and women. Men's group has grown by 50% the last couple of times. So I really think that there's going to be an opportunity to return home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I love it when the synchronicity of the divine just flows, you know. So I woke up this morning, you know, looking, we say we're ancient wisdom. And for me, one aspect of that ancient wisdom is ancient Egypt. And there's a lot of current modern systems of new thought, of systems to transform your life are built around. In ancient Egypt, there were many different pantheon of gods, but there were three primary ones. The first one, and this goes back to that idea you were talking about, Michael, on cycles and rhythms and patterns. They've been around for 3.8 billion years, the same ones. But as we go through that evolutionary spiral, we're at point zero again. We got a higher vantage point than before, but we got a new preview now. And so we're back at point zero on a high evolutionary spin where there's going to be a lot to get back to a balance point. And so when we look at these final thing on this Egyptian thing, which I think is the primal system that we need right now, the first pantheon dealt with how God was created out of chaos, right? And they go through that whole story of how do you deal with it, with chaos, or understand what chaos is. The second thing was the power of the word, the power of consciousness. And then the third thing that the Egyptians took in terms of a God's perspective is you yourself are a creator, an emanator of the divine energy. So you can deal with all this, but you got to do the work. I mean, we can't stress enough. You got to do the work to talk it and to dress it and to sing it and to dance it. That's a joyful expression to the Lord, but that ain't the work that need to be done. And that's what we got to get about doing, the work that need to be done.
I fell into, I'm not done with it yet.
We know the work.
Yeah, we do know the work. I saw a post, and I forget the exact logic of it all, but it came down to the point that in many ways that everybody moving forward, we're going to spend time, right? And I love what you're saying, my heart. We're going to go through those stages of grief. Everybody's going to go through the stages of grief in their own way, unless you're celebrating and partying right now, in which case you're not watching this program anyway. So if you're watching this, yeah, your grief comes next year once he starts enacting policies and you start seeing how it affects your paycheck and the fact that the price of eggs didn't actually go down and yada, yada, yada. But that's a fact, right? We're all going to go through those stages of grief. And part of that is once we come to the acceptance and we start moving forward again, it's not that the grief ever leaves us. It's that we start to work with it in a way that moves us forward again. And interestingly, I didn't see anything from Sharif Abdullah until early this morning. And I haven't had a chance to finish the video yet. And it's Sharif.
Yeah, you got to share that.
So we kind of have an idea. I mean, and the what I want to get to is yesterday, the post that I saw shared the fact that we are all going to lay blame at the feet of our favorite hobby horse. So it's no surprise that Sharif comes forward and says, I never heard a vision. And that's what he says in the very early parts of this video. It's about 20 minutes long. I'm about 10 minutes into it. So I assume he's going to start moving to the solution. And in it, he points to the from his perspective, the problem is there is no vision. The MAGA universe has a vision. It's easy to talk about. It's easy to remember. Kamala and the Democrats are having a tough time presenting a vision.
Yeah.
And I think, and we all do. And even I trust, I haven't heard it yet, but I trust Sharif's going to share in this video that even he does, because a world that works for all just doesn't make the same kind of sense to people as make America great again.
Right.
And where there is no vision, the people perish. So I hear what you're saying, Z, right? In this three-prong, this three-legged stool that we're going to have to build. And for me, one of those is vision, and another is action.
Oh yeah.
And
well, see, you know, vision. I even say your point is the foundation, really, right? Because there is a vision, and there is only one vision, and that vision is there is one life. That life is this whole universe's life, and then we can have access to that life, every aspect of it, right now. But to do that, we got to go through that 3-step process, and I can break it out to 12 steps or 8 steps or 7 steps. That's what these mystery systems do. They take this one core knowledge and they enumerate it so they can break down certain things. But at the end of the day, this is the age of light, Light, energy, a sound, rhythm. You can call it whatever you want to call it. And that's what these ancient systems did. They allowed these stories and songs to create the same energy, the same understanding in different ways, because we're all different. And as ministers in this new age, that's what you better be doing, or it's going to get real weak, right? Because if we're saying we're called, that as the saying goes now, we were built for such a time as this. I've heard that once. I heard it 1,000 times. If that's the case, you better get busy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, interesting. I think we can all agree, meaning us, that the masses of the people, call it whatever percentage, I hate to just throw out numbers, but let's say a very large percentage of the population are not aware of who and what they really are, right? Like at the core of their being. So what we're seeing today in the world of effect is everybody seemingly, not everybody, obviously not everybody, but the majority of the people in the United States who actually voted for person, place, or condition, a savior, somebody who's coming to fix everything imaginable, right? I've had the opportunity to sit with, I estimate, 20 to 25,000 people in their homes over the last 30 years, as I've been in various consulting roles, always in people's living room. I sat with MAGA people in 1995 doing their financial planning, long before the acronym MAGA was a thing, right? But what's always been striking to me is there's that my wife, Reverend Allie, always has a saying, who's the matter with you, right? Who's the problem with you? Who's your because? And as I sit with these beautiful people, sometimes it's a real stretch to feel that you're with beautiful people when they're that angry, when they're that sort of closed off to humanity, and they've got every problem is all around them, with their neighbor, with their friends. Only if this person would do this, only if this person would do that, then what? Then you're going to be whole? Then you're going to realize your wholeness? They don't even understand what the word wholeness is and how that relates to them. So ultimately, what we're experiencing is the chasing of the tail, the flashy object syndrome. Everybody's in pain, and we're just, not everybody, but the vast majority of our neighborly friends at this point, black, white, purple, pink, brown, women, Christian, there's all kinds of people that actually believe that this is going to solve their problems. So to my my minister friends, to my fellow practitioner friends, I really, really encourage you to get ready to build your practice like you never have seen. We've all heard of Bales. We've all heard of Ernest Holmes. We've all heard of the days that Hornaday and these guys had people lined up around the block waiting to sit with them. We've never seen it in our times, other than Michael Beckwith maybe, but we've never really seen people lined up saying, I need prayer work. But that day is happening right now.
I've seen it. I saw it in the late 80s, early 90s, and I had no idea. I was not even aware of New Thought at that moment, not in the formal terms that I know now. I was in the mysticism and in metaphysical teachings, but not in this couch. And I used to go see Eric Butterworth at Lincoln Center in New York City, and Lincoln Center was packed like it was a concert for people coming to hear a word by Eric Butterworth on how to have a better life, on how to be productive, how to deal with challenges. He didn't sugarcoat it. There were problems that needed to be dealt with. Yes, as Ernest said, you treat and move your feet. There was a balance, and that's what's happening now. The chaos has created an unbalance, but we know it's just a reforming of a new balance. And it can go as fast or as slow as we, the practitioners, do the work. That out of everybody I've seen everybody say, at the end of the day, if you want to get to Carnegie Hall, you got to practice, practice, practice. There's no other way unless you buy a ticket to watch two others doing the performance. That's the only way.
Yep.
And Michelle, to answer that, like, this is what we're getting ready for. I know that the inner work, I know that these circles, these meditation circles, the private practices, it's coming, it's everything's expanding and it's going to grow. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Build it and they will come. I agree 100%. But Robert, I wanted to just express, you said it moments ago that they're going to see a year from now or 2 years from now, they meaning our friends, our neighbors, those that actually gave him this opportunity in spite of all the realities, that they're going to see, just like they've always felt, when you get that new truck, you're still not happy. When you get that next job, you're still not happy. When this is why the sauce, the alcohol, the addictions, the addiction on materialism, shopping, porn, all these things that happen are just temporary fixes. We know this, and now they're getting ready to experience it, right? They are getting ready to be let down, kind of like I felt yesterday, and like I feel, there's a part of me right now that's let down for humanity. I'm not lying. But I turn to the light.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I need you to put all that you just said in a letter and send it to me because I love it. This idea that if we're going to really be open to do the work, whatever that work is, there's going to be grieving. We need to do that's. Having had to grieve very early in my life, and I still don't know if I got over the grief. My mother died when I was 6. The grieving and the understanding of a visceral loss, which is what a lot of people are feeling now, viscerally, and it is some feelings in our community that we are headed down a path, as they might say, of ill repute, because we have allowed an individual and a group. It's not even an individual and a group. We have a figurehead, but it is an idea. It is a concept. It is a perspective of consciousness that we've allowed to come into play without any real, I'm going to say this ain't the right word, strategy. We had that, which ultimately goes down to vision. If I got a vision, I can develop a strategy to make that vision happen, and then let the Spirit of the Lord move it the way it needs to be moved. But if we throwing darts, I may hit the balloon or not. I don't know.
If we're throwing darts, there are people that are a lot better at throwing darts. I flash to the fact that North Korea has entered the war with Russia and the Ukraine, and they did it Tuesday night, Wednesday morning.
Well,
Yeah.
Right. So we announced the winner. We announced who won, and global powers felt, cool, right on. We can get away with this now. Bring them in, boys. Let's go. And they're pumping troops from North Korea through Russia, and they're heading straight to the front lines with the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
truthfully, I'm concerned we're not. I do not see how a Donald Trump administration is actually going to do anything helpful. He has pledged to end that war on day one, basically, which doesn't sound fun either. But I don't think he has the wisdom or the people that know. I don't. We're talking World War III. If you want to now. We're religious scientists, so we don't want to follow that track, right? We don't want to look down that road. And I don't want us to either. Because the more of us that do look down that road, that takes it. But I do believe there is space, there is room for a select group, a group of leaders to come together and look at these types of things from that type that can hold. What was the other one? The highest spiritual maturity is to witness the world's pain and not get lost in these times. So yeah, we got to stay the course for love, and yeah, we've got to nurture people, and yeah, we need a vision to drive us forward, and yeah, we need some people to stand up and say, we need, my perspective, a lot of people that are ready to actually do some work towards creating a vision. We generally line up behind the vision that works for all, right?
That's the only one. Now that can be achieved in many different ways, and it has to be. It's just like your body. There's one body, but there's a heart, there's a liver, there's a kidney, there's a respiratory system, there's a limbic system in the brain. There's all these systems that are needed immensely, and you don't want them to be off by an iota, because now we got a diseased body. It's the same thing with the community. In ancient Egypt, the mantra was as above, so below, as below, so above. It is literally true. And we are going to find that out right now if we can't get aligned with the rhythm and the vibration and the light energy of the universe. If for some reason we don't do the work and tune in, tap in, and turn on to the divine creative energy of all things, we are in for a bumpy ride as we evolve into something totally new through this chaotic period that's about to happen. And our job as metaphysicians, as ministers, as people with the grander vision is, Robert and I have been talking about this for a minute. We need to begin to create some think tanks, some new thought, metaphysical, next world think tanks, which is what they did when they created 2025. That the project 2025, that thing is 900 pages. Most people have read the 30 page synopsis. They put it in an AI machine and say, boil this down or something, I guess. I don't know. But when you start whittling through that 900 pages, if that is really the agenda and they've tacitly said it is, there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, it's interesting because in humanity, as we know, and I think we're all students of history to some degree, but the antics of the ego through modern history in the last couple thousand years, there has been a constancy of what we're going to be experiencing, right? This is not new. But I kind of liken ourselves at this point, when we talk ourselves emissary of the light, when we're emissaries of awareness, and we're the awareness, we're the practitioner of wholeness. and we have the opportunity to build that consciousness in our local groups, and when we go to Anton, and when we go to, you know, when we go to Asilomars, and we go to other meditation retreats, and we build this. We go to Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri, and we tune in with other ministers, and we, you know, this constancy of awareness, just like the Masons, and just like the Knights of Templar back in the 11th century and in the 3rd century and the 5th century, like, it's not going to go away. It's not. You can't kill life, right? Life is going to thrive, but the absence of wholeness in the ego, wow. I mean, right now it's running rampant, and it's you know, at the end of the day, I'm looking at you guys. I see your smiles. I see your laughs. I know we're aware of wholeness. So right. The opportunity to continue to build, you know, and to continue to share that. I mean, that's what we have to do. And when you know better, we have to do better. So we're just going to continue keeping on, right?
Yeah.
I've written that a number of times this past couple of days.
Like
keep
that.
on keeping on. Keep right. Old phrase. Keep on keeping on. You're going to hear this from us again and again, folks. And by the way, it's about that time. If you wonder what you've stumbled into, this is Ministers Talking Shit. It happens every Friday morning, and we never end on time. We always push over. So we're into the overtime zone already, and that's become our new norm. So, and I wanted to address a couple of things here, right? I think this is your beloved here, Michael, Reverend Alley, who's got a couple shows here on the network. We cannot have what we're not willing to become in consciousness. My question is, how can we build a consciousness that corresponds with what we truly want? The biggest question is, what do we want? I think that's I know that's an absolutely valid question. And it's your first question, what do we want? We want peace. When do we want it? We want it now. We want justice. When do we want it? We want all these pieces. But I think the more important question is, how do we build the consciousness? Because it does start with us. It starts with the individual. It starts within. It starts with those individual sessions and doing the work with real people in their living rooms. And that, as that works, as people come to a sense of healing and a sense of this oneness in a greater way, we can take that into the organizations we serve. Most of the ministers I know have done most of the work. I think, Michael, you said it at the top of the show. Nobody's 100%. If I was 100%, you'd call me Jesus. And I'm not 100%. And I have my snarky comments on some people's posts, and I break down and say things I shouldn't. However, we start with the individual. That moves us into the organizational, and we each lead our organizations to that greater sense of oneness and wholeness and health. And as that happens, that's what changes society. That's what changes culture. We have a problem with vision, but we have a bigger problem with culture. If you look at the culture of America today, if you overlay the demographics of how this election fell out, numbers wise, and you overlaid that with a relatively traditional New Thought community, there's a lot more people in our churches that voted for Trump than we might know. And that means
might have been somebody in your family.
As we come to a greater, for many, I don't think that's a might. For a lot, I think that's a definite. So I think I'm going to come back to, and I'm coming back to that same point we've all been making. Regardless of the form of the work, we all have work to do. If we're in a pulpit ministry and we're leading a church, we've got to start to recognize that not everybody thinks the same way we do. And there's probably a lot more in our congregation that don't think like we do than there are that do in the demographic. You guys get my point. And everyone is going to be necessary to do the work in the place where they are most suited, where your gifts and your skills and your talents are. We don't all have to go run out and get into politics. We don't all, as far as running for office, we don't all have to, we all do have to we got to do better at voting. Obviously, 15 million less people voted this time around than last time around. We cannot afford that kind of disenfranchisement. Even if the majority of them were going to vote against my choice, even if the majority, right, even if it wouldn't have changed anything, 15 million less people voted this time around, and there's something that, from my perspective, has to change.
Let's go back. Let's go back to this question. Go ahead, Michael. You look like you got the next thing. And then I want to go back to this question that I think it was Michelle brought up. Somebody brought, what do we want and how do we get it? I want to go back to that, right? Because at the end of the day, life is what it is, right? Right? 47 is the president-elect, right? So, I like the Bible stance on this thing. I understand the oneness of all of the ancient wisdom. In the Bible, it says when you fast or when you pray or when you do these things, do them in private, right? Because it's not to be, it is a method of communicating with the divine, right? And so when we know what we want, it has already been established that the universe will create the environment for that thing to happen. There's the law of attraction, if we will. There's the law of correspondence, if we will. There's the law of reciprocity, which is another name for law of cause and effect. When we get clear about what we want, everything else takes away. And so we have to go through life. If you look at all the ancient myth creation stories, they all start with some kind of thing of chaos. And then there is this level of consciousness rising out of that chaos. And out of that consciousness, you realize that you're one with it. And then you say, I begin to create myself. I can go learn to play the piano. I can learn to be a master big mason. I can do all these things that will add to the oneness, the place of all things, because there have been stories, and that's one of the theories of this place, that the creation story was this chaos that happened and it all went boom. And then 3.8 million years later, here we are, right? We can't figure out 3.8 billion. We don't know if the universe has been around 2 times that, 4 times that, 10 times that. This process could have been happening infinitum. And each time, the level of consciousness, the level of awareness. I love that term Michael gave, and I'm going to give it to Michael, is that I got to look at it because I wrote it down. He said the emissaries of awareness, and I changed it a little bit to say to the emanaries of awareness, consciousness, and creation. That's what we're emissaries of. Because when you understand the oneness of all things, and I mean really understand it, and it takes some work, everything has its purpose. We see it. They start taking one thing out of the equation. That's why math is so good. You can add things into as a panoramic. When you start taking things out of that equation, that thing don't hold true. And that's the mantra. In math, it says, as long as A plus B holds, meaning as long as that truth is what's happening right now, because we know it'll change. Mechanical physics gave way to quantum physics, and now quantum physics is at a higher level, still the same principles of mechanical physics, but the merging of it is happening right now, and that's kind of like what's happening with us. We're trying to figure out how to get this old way of looking at the new way of looking to merge without killing us all.
Robert, do we have another minute? How much overtime are we?
I own the network. We can do whatever we want.
Okay, good.
You know.
All right. So
There's that old white guy privilege thing that I get to throw around once in a while. So
good, good. So Dr. Ali asked the question, and the key word that was jumping out for me in the question was we. So and I'm not faulting you. I love the question. I think it was intentionally asked because when I think about how to get what we want, immediately I begin to feel the absence of power in that. Like, is it mine to do to create the we? Is it mine to do? Do I have any power over the we? And the answer to me is we get to the we through the I, right? So I need to become clear on what I want. And then obviously, honey, with you, because we do so much collective visioning in our meditation room, we get to the we pretty quick in our circle. And then of course we sit with other people. And so it's really through the local that we're going to understand the we. But boy, when just in hearing that question, I felt my power suck from my local center out through into the ineffable, which was like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't even know what the we is. Also, I just want to add this on a different note. I think that we ought to be aware that the antics of the ego are going to run rapid over the next several years. We're going to see shenanigans. We're going to see, the trying to fix the system for their benefit long term. We're going to see the greed grab. We're going to see the wealth gap jump even more. We're going to see 300 billionaire guys become 500 billion over the next 4 years. It's been that way forever, you guys. Kings forever have been throwing rice and spoiling food out on the streets as their gesture to socialization, right? Taking care of the people. They've been doing that for centuries. All the while they're sitting in their tower going mad, literally going mad. And yeah, it's going to continue. But we, as emissaries of the light, as emissaries of consciousness, we're going to live and prosper. We're going to thrive because we're thrivers.
Yes.
I love it when a plan come together. The spirit of the divine. See, when we create a touch point, that environment creates. There's this concept, and I'm going to find this book and put it in the thing later. I've been listening and reading so much lately, I get them all confused. But I think it's Margaret Wheatley, and she talks about this book by a gentleman who studied many different civilizations, like 8 to 10 civilizations in old times, and looked at what we're talking about, the pattern, the rhythm, the cycles of life in a community or civilization, from fall to rise to fall again. And the point, he said, out of all of them that failed, indication of that the chaos was about to come in, that the rechanging the order is when we got to decadence. When the society got to decadence and there was no concern for your fellow man, there was no concern for the environment that you lived in, then it was a sign that a chaotic period of reformation, of transformation, of caterpillar to butterfly was about to happen. And the best or the most creative part is after that, which right now I think we're after it, in it and after it, is the ability to be a pioneer of consciousness, a pioneer of whole living, a pioneer of elevating consciousness and awareness. Because I love that my awareness. There's a Anthony DeMello, a Jesuit priest out of India, Pune, India. They asked him about what is awareness, and he said awareness. And they said, yeah, but what is awareness? He said awareness. And he says, yeah, but I need a formal definition of awareness. He said, okay, awareness, awareness, awareness. We got to be aware of everything. Our body is taking in 1 billion bits of information at a second from our eyes, our skin, sound, vibration. We only, we narrow that down, they say, to about 120,000 out of 1 billion to make conscious focus of what we got, of what we're trying to do. But we know it's possible. If we go look at the ancient Tibetan monks who practice, ain't no joke about whether they practice. We know they practice. These cats, I've seen the video. These cats can go out in the freezing, put on a wet sari and dry it by understanding and raising the consciousness and heat of their body to dry that, right? They can focus on things for hours because they've been trained. They practice to do that with joy. You will hardly ever see a Buddhist monk not smiling. I don't care which tradition. And each one of those, Bruce Lipton, not Bruce Lipton, forget the guy's name. What's the guy with Bruce Lipton?
Greg Braden.
The book, Greg Braden. Greg Braden talked about his trips over to Tibet, where he talked to them about the ancient temples or different orders or different facets of the Tibetan tradition. He said each one of those was a university. Some of them were just University of Studies in Plant Medicine. Some of them were understanding, that's all they studied. Some of them, the one noted most is martial arts, right? You see some of these stuff these monks can do, you say, yeah, that until you go see it, you say, ooh, that's pretty tough. That's what we have to be as religious scientists, ministers. We got to get that kind of practice and discipline so that the awareness that is already there can be revealed.
Reverend. All right. Folks, we are now into super overtime, but I can't leave without the last word, I guess.
You got it.
I want to recognize, Michelle, your order for a New Thought Center in Central Massachusetts has been received, and we're going to start working on that in consciousness. So feel free to reach out. Emissaries of Pioneering Consciousness. That's the point I have found in today's conversation. We are emissaries of pioneering consciousness. We can, and there is, I don't see anything more in the moment than that. Interestingly, and this is a whole nother conversation, but we also got to the point where I've been reminded of an old phrase that I haven't heard a lot of this election season. We were looking at the difference between power over and power with. And power over has won. And our consciousness, the collective consciousness of America, believes that power over is a better way forward than power with. And it's disguised. And I think that's part of what we get to uncover, we get to reveal, and we get to hold a vision. Not only for a center in Central Massachusetts, so Michelle has somewhere to hang out, but that all of humanity comes to a greater understanding of being in power with each other rather than who do I have power over. And then we can get rid of the old white guy privilege that says, yeah, it's my network, we can do whatever we want, and move into a true experience of a world that works for all. Okay, it's not my network, but that's all we got, folks. So we're going to wrap it up, let you get back into your day. Please do stay with us here on the New Thought Media Network. All of our normal programming, we have overrun our dear friend Sekou Wright. He's already on. Prayer time starts at 8:15, 8:30. It's the morning sip with Rev BRZ. 9 o'clock, Spanish language programming with Emma Moreno. 9:30 is our Spanish language prayer broadcast. Check that out with members of our Spanish language prayer team. That all happens at 9:30. Later today, The Joy Show with Barbara Jean is on at 1. The Good News at 5. 6 o'clock is the Fireside Chat. And there is something in my head that says we've added something on Friday nights, but I don't know what it is. So I'll have to go do my homework and find that out. Until next time, dear ones, we want to thank you for being with us and wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
Ciao.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.